Our guest this hour is a man whom we've hosted before on the show, and we're beginning this conversation with him because it is relevant. Isaac Ndereva is a power bills analyst. He's from the Electricity Consumer Society of Kenya. And just before I introduce Isaac, let me read what the president told us on Jamhuri Day last year. He said, I will conclude my address by keeping a promise that I made. On the 20th of October, I directed the Ministry of Energy to fast-track the implementation of the recommendations of the Presidential Task Force on Power Purchase Agreements. I am pleased to note that the pathway to reduce the cost of electricity by over 30% is on course. In honor of this pledge to the nation and in response to the concerns over the high cost of electricity raised by both individual consumers and enterprises, I am pleased to announce that the nation that the reduction of the cost of electricity will be implemented in 2 tranches of 15% each, with the first 15% achieved through initial actions focusing on system and commercial losses to be reflected in the December bills, and a further 15% reduction in the first quarter of 2022. Mm-hmm. So it was to come in 2 tranches. Yes. First one by the end of December, 15%, and this would be occasioned by seeing addressing of the losses, system losses and commercial losses. And then now we look at the power purchase agreements and everything else, and by March, the next 15% reduction comes in. So you'll be
getting essentially 30% reduction is what you would be seeing, according to what the president said, by the end of March this year.
Yes.
Right? And I mean, so essentially what we are saying is, for prepaid users, and then I guess we can go into that more, if you were spending 1,000 shillings, you would be able to get many more units for the 1,000 shillings, or you would then be able to spend less than 1,000 shillings for the same amount that you would previously have bought.
Yep.
So at the end of the day, you're getting more token for the shillings spent, or if you're only spending a certain amount, that you would be sure that you would get more than you would normally spend. So if you would normally spend 500 shillings on buying your tokens, that you can then be assured that you will get a little bit more for that amount.
That 500 will take you longer.
Exactly. It'll take you longer.
Yeah.
Or that if you spend a little bit more in terms of 1,000 shillings, you get many more tokens. Yes.
Ndereva.
Indeed, I think we have started with the wrong statement. That it is 30% that was to be reduced. It was 33%.
That's true.
Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know what I think the president, again, decided to say that it is going to be 30%.
He rounded it off.
He
said
he should have rounded it.
He said over. He said
yes.
His statement, to be fair to him,
yes.
over 30%. In October, he said 33.
Yes.
In December, he said over 30%.
Okay.
But then he only talked about 15.
Right.
Yes. 2 tranches of 15.
That is why I don't want us to be
18 and then 15, or he would have said 15 and then 18, right?
Now, I think it's good to make it straight that the task force had directed that from the time it gave us this report, which I have here, they had talked of that they are going to reduce every month. We were expecting some reduction in October, in November, and in December. Now, for the president to come during the holiday to say that it is on course, it was not on course to start with. Because nothing had been reduced. Even now, I've just tried to buy one, and it is the same. It is the same because...
It is the same as what?
It is the same as last year. And in fact, even more. First of all, let me say that we have a line that is not working from Rick Tukana. And as a result, we are doing more thermal generation.
Yep.
So even the cost of fuel this month was... fuel charge was 20, in fact, they have said, it is around 4%, 4 shillings. Now, that by itself tells you that we are not even likely to get a reduction, because they will start complaining that, now we have a problem. In fact, we are now doing load shedding of about 250 250 megawatt in the country. As in, mpaka tujipange so that we can find a way in which we can offload 250 from the consumption. Ndio sasa watu wengine wapate stima. Now, that being the first challenge, of which, in fact, we don't want to listen to them. But when the task force were mandated to do one thing, to look at the PPAs, and then the PPAs were averaging at 8.2 shillings per kilowatt hour. And they wanted it to be brought to around 5.4, like engine. The maximum that you would have gotten from that reduction was 12%. 12. Now, for them to come and tell the president you can reduce 33%, it cannot work. The only way it can work is if the president says we have removed the fuel cost can be brought to around 2 shillings. And then your PPA, if they do something, then they bring it to around an average of 5 shillings. But the major component has to be VAT. If we need to get 13% of the reduction,
then VAT in power has got to go.
But Isaac, why would these ladies and gentlemen come together and tell the president that we can actually do something like this? If you here, me here, can sit and say it is clearly impossible for this thing to happen, if you can explain it in the manner in which you explained it right now and said absolutely impossible for this thing to happen, why would they come together and then present it to the president in a way that would suggest that it was possible to have a 33% reduction on power in their homes? Why would they do that? Logically speaking, why would you go present a case which is impossible to do? Why?
In fact, I think that is also something that confused me, because John Ngumi was a chairman. He's a person that would not imagine he could not have informed very well. But let me tell you the logics, or just enough of what you can decide for yourself. That now, consumption takes 12.81%. I mean, takes around 50.44. But then, let us imagine, watoe pesa from 8.2 to 5 shilling, they would have managed to reduce by 12.81. If they were talking about PPA only. And remember those PPAs, some of them wale walikuwa wanasema sijui Triumph Power is charging 176. No, that was not right, because some of them is standing charge, and if you generate like 2 units, you have to divide by the standing charge. That might look expensive, but it wasn't. So that was misinformed. But let me say, if they were just looking at the PPAs and they say we don't want anybody else other than KenGen alone
supplying power to Kenya Power.
Supplying power. They say we have tumekuja hapa, president, we have come, we have decided we don't want any private producer here. The maximum they would have reduced is 12.81. Now, even if they reduce everything else and they don't touch on the VAT, the maximum they could reduce is 24 shillings. So I don't understand where was 33 coming from.
Let's start from the very top.
Yes.
Okay. So you are saying you have studied the report of the task force,
I have
presidential
studied
task force.
Yes.
You even presented some views to the presidential task force during its sittings.
Yes.
So take us through the report. What were the main issues that they identified as the cause for high power bills in the country?
Now,
in the task force report.
First of all, they picked too many things that were not part of what they were supposed to check. If they would have followed just the people. You saw the report was talking about presidential task force on the review of power purchase agreement.
Yes.
Now, the report also mentions about EPRA, it mentions about nuclear. You see, there are so many things it has mentioned about, which is quite good because it has captured the whole of the Kenya the power.
They decided to understand the entire
industry.
So just take us again.
Yeah.
Tell it. So what did the task force identify as the main causes of huge power bills in the country?
It is what they highlighted mostly is that we were buying power expensively from some of the independent power producers.
Some IPPs were charging exorbitant, overcharging.
Yes.
Okay, that's one.
Yeah.
Second?
The other one is that Kenya Power had some losses which they could manage, and they were imposing those losses to the citizens.
What does that mean?
Now, first of all, I'm an engineer, and I would say that I would defend Kenya Power just a little.
Explain first of all before you defend.
Now, what happens is that during there are things called technical and some losses along the transmission. Zingine zimeibiwa, some people are just connecting without meters.
Okay.
So, so they were saying part of that would, if reduced, it would transform into that saving.
That would be
it would go to the citizens. We have saved.
Okay.
The other one they were saying is that Kenya Power themselves, in the system in how they are managing their procurement and all that, They said there is something that could be saved. There is a lot of corruption inside there and all that. And even now in Kenya Power, there is nobody who is there for a long time. There has been some suspension of some general managers and some other acting managers who are in. Even remember that even the MD is also acting. So there is nobody who is where they are supposed to be in Kenya Power because of this mvutano, push, pull. But I can tell you, that was not the business of the task force. Because that was Kenya Power's business on how they are managing. And if they are making a loss of...
But does it make sense?
It makes sense.
Does it make sense to say that because of the kind of system inefficiencies you have within Kenya Power,
yes,
it leads to power being expensive?
Yes.
It makes sense?
It makes sense.
And it also makes sense to say, because of those losses, because of people who have illegal power connections,
yes,
because of such kind of stuff,
yes,
it leads to power being expensive. It makes sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. Does it also make sense to say that some IPPs are overcharging?
It makes sense.
Okay.
Yes.
So what they've found as the main causes makes sense even to you?
It makes sense.
Higher. The recommendations then?
The few recommendations that he made, actually they made a lot of them, and they even attached a date, some of which you may be surprised that nobody is keeping track.
Okay.
For example, an interesting one, in 2019 March, there was a new energy act that introduced nuclear power agency. Now that agency, the task force came and said it is not important. And by July 2022, it should be disbanded. Now, look at that.
For that sole reason that it was not important.
It wasn't important. In any case, some countries are leaving nuclear power.
Yeah.
We don't think we have shortage in power for us to start looking at other. We haven't even exhausted geothermal and wind for us to start thinking of nuclear.
Yes.
So now, even the functions of that agency were not to generate or anything. It's to study, to do training, to look at what can be. In fact, it's funny. It was on page 63 of this report. It reads, if I can read for you, Nuclear Power Agency, Nuclear Power and Energy Agency, NUPEA. In the Energy Act 2019, NUPEA is mandated to do this, promotion and implementation of Kenya's nuclear power program, undertake research and development for the nuclear form of energy, awareness, creation and disseminate information on the efficient use of energy and its conservation, and then training and development in the field of energy and petroleum, research and technology development, train and upgrade human resource capacity in energy sector, and to promote local production of energy technologies. There's no way to say
so it's not about nuclear.
It's not about nuclear.
Looking at
so
how,
you see such an agency. Now, they said it should be disbanded by July 22. And I really hope that it will not be political because, you know, some sons of some senior people in government may say, sasa mnataka huyu aende wapi. I really hope that will not happen. But I am saying there are a lot of contradictions that this task force found, and it was very important to be brought. Like now, they also said EPRA should not be commanded by anybody. Should not get direction from Minister of Energy. It is an authority. It is actually the regulator. And so they should not go asking. So in fact, Mr. Kipto, who is now the Director General, should be a very powerful person in this energy sector. But you will still find some people from the ministry wanamwambia namna hii. In fact, he should be stronger than the Minister for Energy.
Yeah.
But now, you might find that he will keep on asking, what do we do here?
So EPRA basically does not have the power that it should have.
It was given the power by the Energy Act. It has been given power by this report. And I don't know who else they should be waiting for. They shouldn't wait for anybody else to say, ati sisi tunagoja tuambiwe what to do. I mean, EPRA has enough power to even decide. And let me just mention one thing that people may not be keeping track. We were told that the price was to be reduced from 24 shillings to 16 shillings. Now, EPRA should have said, we have gazetted that power is going to be 16 shillings for domestic users. Sasa hiyo ingine ni maneno ya Kenya Power to know what to do. But now, I think the president was also clever to know that nyinyi mumesema tutareduce hii. Instead of us bringing someone else, aseme hii hatuwezekani, just
you go and implement that same report.
Go and implement. He has not been able. Now, you can see, alikuwa anataka kurushia mwingine, and then it becomes very complicated for everybody. So now, he should call Gumi and ask him, you and your team, you develop this report, na mukasema this is going to be realistic. Why is it not realistic? And I said, he should not even try anything. If VAT is going to be the same 13% of the bill, then even if they are given power for free by Kenyan,
did the task force recommend reduction of VAT?
No.
Or
in fact, they were not
any
specific.
tax?
They were not even any specific on what needs to be reduced. They just said 33%. So now they were expecting that if you get off, if you remove all the IPPs, and I have said even if you remove all of them, the maximum you could have saved would have been 12%. So they were not specific on what needs to be done.
What needs to be done?
They were not.
If that 12% that you're talking about, I mean, all the math has been done, all the formulas been calculated, and you're saying the absolute best in terms of a reduction for everybody across the country would have been 12.1%.
12.1%.
You can't go beyond, even if you stretch it, you can't go beyond. So I go back to my question, Isaac. Why give 33% as the announcement if it is clear from all the formula and all the workings, all of these things taken into consideration? Why give 33%? It seems like a huge jump for me. 21. That's the number that we're looking at. 21.
12.
But no.
Yeah.
I'm saying
the
we've left
difference.
out the difference is 21%.
Yes, exactly.
That's a huge gap. Why give that if it is absolutely not possible and people can figure it out by applying a simple formula?
In fact, that's why we actually we submitted our comments, and we were also surprised that they said it's 33%. And last time I came here, I said I don't think it's going to be possible.
Okay.
Very many people have come to my office to ask me that. Why do you keep on saying that this is not possible? And we do the same maths. And I say, assume you've been given power for free. Give Kenya Power free power. Tell them to sell. What is the maximum that you can get from there?
What will it take to get to that 33%?
Now,
what do we have to look at and say, snip it here?
Now,
what would we do to get to 33?
That's a very good question, because I may be told that now Ngomi has not managed to do his job.
You come and do it.
I will do this because I had even structured. Now, I will come and say, from 8.2 average, that is what Kenya Power was buying on average. From 8.2, I say, let me start with what John Ngomi said. I don't want any IPP other than Kenyan. Of course, it's not practically possible, but I would say that because I will say I'm following a report.
Yes.
And then the cost of power would come from, in fact, even Kenyan was supplying at 5.48, but because there is some capacity charge and all that, I would say we also remove the capacity charge. The one for paying them to be on standby, I would remove that. And then bring from 5.48 to 5 shillings. That way, I would save 3.2 shillings, which is 12.81%. Then I would come and say the fuel cost is going to be from 3.88, I will bring it to 2.5.
Why?
Because right now, we are surviving on thermos because of non-generation on some areas. So I wouldn't scrap them off. I would also consider that some of the contracts are very rigid. So I would maintain them a bit at 2.5. I would save 5.52% by doing that. And then I would come and say Forex is not a business that we need to care about. Forex was brought about by the IPPs, which use the dollar to do their contract. So I would say, and of course, even the task force said that we don't need to sign any contract on dollar, on foreign currency. So that would come to zero. I would save 3.04%. And then inflation, I would say, I would not try to, I would just get inflation off the Kenyans. But that would only save 1.48 shillings. And then I would leave WARMA, that is Water Resource Management Authority, and EPRA. The year cost is very minimal. And then I would say rural electrification program, it is now 0.79 Kenya shillings per kilowatt hour. I would bring that to 0.5. I would get a 1.16 saving. Now, when I do that, all that would come to 24%. Having done all that, so I will now come to VAT and I say, I have 13% that I don't know what to do. So I would say, let me offload this taxation from the citizens. And if you do a total of what I have said, you would get 37.35%.
So how do you know they're not doing this, Isaac?
Sorry?
How do you know that this is not their plan?
It's not, because I think the president would have said, first of all, I said the major component of this reduction has to be VAT. And I don't think it is them to do that, because they are busy in Kenya Power trying to say, hey, who bought this transformer? That's not about VAT. VAT has to come from the president and say, mimi nimetoa tax ya stima 13%. Now, that 13%, hiyo ingine wacha watafute where we are going to get. Until they say that 10% VAT is off. Even if we reduce it,
all else are lies.
all those others, even if you reduce to almost zero,
would
it's
not
24.
be significant in terms of a dent in this number.
Yeah.
Isaac Ndereva is with us in the studio. He is a power bills analyst. He's from the Electricity Consumer Society of Kenya. So it's the 3rd of January and we should be having some 15% reduction in the power bills. Nyangano says the president gave the directive, but I just received my December bill, which increased by 1 shilling in November. The cost per kilowatt hour was 18 shillings, but in December, I was charged 19 shillings per kilowatt hour.
Merry Christmas.
It should have gone down. There's a problem there, Nyangano. Just call Kenya Power, talk to them. That's what we are discussing. Is it coming to fruition, the 15% that should have gone into a reduction this year? So the president's directive, and he called it a promise, and he said, in keeping with his promise, 15% power bills were going to be dropping by 15% by the end of December, and then a further 15% by March. And Ndereva is here, he's telling us that's impossible. In fact, what we are asking you is, have you noticed a drop in your power bills this month, the month of December? Have you noticed a drop in your power bills? If you buy tokens today, are they 15% cheaper than they were when you bought in December? So that's the question that we are asking. Ndereva, so you're saying it is virtually impossible if you were given the job, unless they touch VAT, it's highly improbable that you can actually achieve the 33% reduction in power bills that was recommended by the task force. And Ndu was asking you, so why would this task force that comprises people who are experts in various fields come together? They've studied the power sector, they've tried to understand the billing, and then they've written a report and they have recommended and told the president it's actually possible to reduce, and you're saying it's impossible to reduce. First of all, who are the members of this task force? I mean, you had John Gomi. He is a renowned investment banker. We had tax experts here. We had people who have worked in the energy sector. These are people who know what they were talking about.
In fact, they were big names, actually. John Gomi and Aaron Rinkera, all of them were there. And even when we were presenting our comments, we had, there's this lawyer, it's called Okia Omotata. He had also some serious findings. But the team, even, it includes Isaac Kiva, Dr. John Muthui from EPRA, and all those people. And so there were 16. And there were 16. We had several doctors, we had several engineers there. In fact, engineers were more. But then...
and these are engineers?
Those are engineers who had worked in the sector.
In the sector. Yeah. They have experience in the energy sector.
Yes.
They understand when they say billing, when they say system losses, they know what they're talking about.
Yes.
When they say power purchase agreements, they know what they're talking about.
Yes.
They wrote a report that recommends 33% reduction if certain things are done.
Yes.
So why can't we believe them?
I can't believe them. Because number one, I have told you that first of all, they would have said, this is the cost of power, and this is the fuel cost. If fuel charge, we want it to be brought from here to here.
Right.
Then from here to here. And that is what I'm saying. If they would have done that,
and they would have a roadmap of what needs to be done to see the 33%
on the
reduction.
cost. In fact, they had a good roadmap. They even had dates that by this time, July 2022, you should disband this, by this, and they are saying by who and by when.
Okay.
But not on the cost that in PPAs, they should reduce the year's cost from this to this, and that is where we are getting a shilling. This is the tax in Forex. We should reduce from here to here. They didn't do that.
Okay. Just take us through some of the things that they said with timelines.
There were many. Let me tell you some.
Because there's disband the nuclear energy by June 2022.
Because it was unimportant.
Let me tell you one. Appointment of the system operator. It was EPRA to implement the recommendations by 30th November. We are not sure whether that has been done.
Okay.
Of course, expect many has not been done because the power prices have not come down. So if these things would have been done, we would have expected. So disband, of course, I want to tell you some that would have been done. Transmission infrastructure tariff. the authority is EPRA, should unbundle transmission and distribution tariff for transparency in the supply of electricity and ensure cost recovery in line with the principle of prudently incurred cost.
Okay.
They should have done that by 31st October 2021.
What does that mean? Through
a legal notice. They were supposed to come and say, these are the amount of losses we are getting. And then waweke kwa bill. Waseme, these are as a result of the losses.
So this is for transmission?
Yes.
And this is for distribution.
And this is for the purchase ya Kenya Power na nunua. They should structure it as per that. So that when they are saying, and that is why I unburdened myself. And I said, if this is the bill, and we are saying that you want to attack PPAs, power purchase agreement, the maximum reduction you can recommend, the maximum is going to be 12.81%.
And that is
by getting rid ukisikia Triumph Power or Power, all those guys, other than KenGen alone.
Lake Turkana, Wind Power, all of them.
Get rid of them. You will bring your cost from an average of 8.2 to 5.48, but then do some few adjustments on the remaining, so that atoke 5.48 to 5.
Okay.
That would have brought to 12.81. 33 inatoka wapi?
Isaac, something presents itself to me here.
Yes.
Is that all right? So if you can figure it out, if you can just look at the report that they came up with and you say, okay, hold on. Maybe, you're an expert on this, so you can see these numbers and it doesn't make sense. Yeah. And probably if somebody else who was not an expert just was able to interrogate those numbers just a little bit, it wouldn't make sense to them either. Right? You could actually look through the formula and say, hold on a minute, a little bit of simple math here, and we can figure out that this is not working, right?
Yeah.
Now, if anybody can figure that out, I'm still belaboring this point. If anybody can figure it out.
Yes.
But then here we are that we're making promises to Kenyans on something that is so delicate that touches on everything else that they must do. Because you touch power, you touch food, you touch
employment.
Everything that they have to do. Employment, people have to use power to basically run their businesses, run their homes, run water, etc. It touches everything that you have to do. And so you're making a public statement on something of this nature, which what you're saying right now, Isaac, is that it's not true. That's essentially what you're saying.
Yeah.
That these statements that were made to Kenyans in October last year and then pronounced again in December on Jamhuri Day, essentially is not true. That Kenyans are being hoodwinked.
It is, in fact, let me tell you, there is someone who has said that he used to buy at, I think he was buying at 17 point something.
18
Today
shillings
it is 18.
in December.
Today is 18.79. I've just bought to confirm. You know, sometimes they may decide to say, Ndereva ameenda pale, wacha tumuonyeshe hajui. I have decided to buy, just to confirm.
So you've bought
I have
power
bought. I just bought for 100 shillings. And at 100, I got 5.29 units. That is for
5.29 units for 100 shillings.
Yeah, but I will explain. It's because the category I am in, for that particular, is a small house.
For the particular
on the
meter.
Side,
Yeah.
Sasa here is the one that was being charged 17 point. It was being charged 17.69 when the rest were being charged at 24 point.
Okay.
So it has increased by a shilling. So expect ile ingine ilitoka from 24 to 25. Now, the biggest challenge and the question we need to ask ourselves, I have bought. So that means this is January. And I know in December people bought. So following the president's directive that we should get a reduction of 15%, when are we going to get this 15% refund? On what we have already bought? Because kama alisema, otherwise, if we are not being refunded, we have paid.
You've already paid.
Yes, so we shouldn't be refunded if it had not been reduced. So are we saying that the president says something, na hakuna mtu anafuata, or he knows that this is a political statement? And then I said, you were asking something, Ndu, that if you go through the report and the maths, I will tell you this report is very informative, only for one thing. It does not capture figures that would lead to this figure. So now, it will tell you, we realize that the demand was this, sometimes we are going to this, we realize that the generation was this, but the figures of saying it could have been this. And this is what needs to be. If you look at the losses, you are going to reduce, and I said losses have got some allowed benchmarks. You can't come to zero. So for them to say, Kenya Power is losing 24% on transmission losses, if that is brought to zero, it needs to now reduce the power cost to this. You know, it is not possible. And I said they are engineers. So they should have said the maximum you can get from there.
From addressing system losses.
Is 9%. And that cannot be a 3 months job. Because transmission is infrastructure which has taken time.
Yeah.
Some of them is aging. Other issues are power factor
It's
problems. And all
old
that.
meters,
Yeah,
old-
old meters. So you can't promise in 1 month or 4 months or 1 year that the losses can be reduced.
Realistically, if we were to look at, because this 15% that we are looking at for today
Yes.
should have come from addressing system losses. Okay? That's what the president told us.
That is what the president
Realistically,
Yes.
Ndereva,
Yes.
if we were to actually look at KPLC and KPLC addressing its system issues,
Yes.
how long should it take for us to
see
to even
these
realize that
changes.
9% that you're saying? The most probable number that we can get is
12.1%.
9% reduction in system losses. How long would it take for us to get
I
to
would,
achieve that?
if I would be the MD for Kenya Power, I would give 5 years.
What
has
do you
also-
mean?
Yeah.
To
because
remove people who are
not
illegally
operating.
connections.
You see, you are removing, and some of them are joining. But that is not, the losses is not just about theft. I said it is inclusive of the drops, the transmission.
Yeah.
Some will need some complete redesign. Now, it has taken us, I think, almost 10 years to connect people from 25% to 75%.
Yeah.
Now, you are looking at going through all those connections again. It wouldn't be 1 year.
Okay.
Yes.
So I've also bought 100 shillings
Yes.
worth of power.
Yes.
Right?
You've gotten
and
four.
I've gotten 100 shillings gives me 3.86 units as
Now-
compared to your 5.2 for the little house, right?
So you're a different power consumer.
Yes,
Yeah.
because you are consuming more than 100 kilowatt hours per month.
Right.
For this small house, is consuming less than 100 kilowatt hours. And those are the people we call domestic lifeline.
Okay.
You are domestic ordinary.
So
You are
domestic
among-
lifeline
Yes.
is sort of also what the government considers as social.
Yes, it's for the last mile connectivity, how watu wadogo.
What to a dogo.
Yes.
Okay.
And those are the ones who are told they will be paying 12 shillings. 12. From 17, 16, they were
Okay.
supposed to pay 12.
So my question is,
Yes.
with this reduction, how much should I be getting with what this announcement is?
Yes.
With 100, I've gotten 3.86.
3.86.
With this, how much should I be getting for 100 shillings?
As a domestic or
As
domestic
now, what did
ordinary.
you call me? Domestic ordinary.
You are domestic ordinary.
Okay.
You are the most, it's a group of the highest paying class. And you see that is the biggest population because I think they make around almost 80%.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for the 100 shillings that I spent and get 3.86,
Yes.
how much should I be getting if we're looking at this 33% reduction?
33%.
How much should I be getting for 100 shillings?
Okay. Then you'll be charged around 16.
For the same 100 shillings.
6.25 units.
So I should get 6.2. So it should be, okay, a little bit more than that.
Not a little bit more.
That is double.
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 That
Double
is
the
double.
units.
Yes, that is what should be getting. And that is why we were happy when he announced that. But I'm telling you, the ordinary citizens, while wanalipa, I think, let me say, you are among the domestic ordinary constitute 35.68%, but they contribute 55% of the Kenya
Of
power
KPLs.
income. So domestic ordinary for that small house, they are only contributing 9.17 to the Kenya power, but they are, the total number is 60% of the Kenyan
So the
population.
majority is
The majority are
domestic
enjoying,
what?
but you see, the people who pay tax, who drive the economy, are the ones who are highly taxed. And you remember you're also paying VAT.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think this is going to happen? Because I'm at pains.
not.
I'm at pains. I mean, sure, it would not be the first thing that was said publicly and that has not come to pass. But again, it's such an emotive issue. It's almost as emotive as land in this country when you're talking about power and the cost of it and then what it's able to run. Do you see that it would not happen? Because I really would, it would be very difficult for me to swallow that on several occasions in the very recent past, the president has made these announcements and that people were waiting with bated breath to actually see the reduction. I mean, in these hard times, you spend the same amounts of money and you get more. I mean, it's a good thing. And like you said, people were really excited about it. So do you think that it wouldn't happen?
I wasn't excited personally because I knew it can't happen. It won't happen.
Okay, so let's take somebody then who
It
is,
would.
let's
Take
take somebody
Ndu.
like me who is then not as speculative as yourself, who would say, my goodness, for
It's
1,000
going to be a
bob,
good thing.
yeah, for 1,000 bob, I can have power for an entire month,
Of
right?
62 units.
Double.
For 1,000, yeah.
Double what I'm
Right now
buying
you are getting
I'm getting
39, I guess.
a little less than that, actually.
So let me tell you, this, I am here if you do betting. You can bet with this one. You can take this one to the bank. there is nowhere in Kenya you will get 33% reduction in the cost of electricity in this country.
By March.
If at all VAT will not be touched. Number two, if what we are expecting the shake-ups in Kenya Power, those shake-ups and the losses identification and all that, if that is where they want to get the savings for reduction to be done, that 15% will never happen. Will never happen. And I'm here, I will come back here, and I will say, I told you, in March, unless they touch something on the taxation, there is nothing like that.
Unless they zero rate it, basically.
Or even just drop it.
Drop it by a few.
Because now, I last time I
Drop
was here, I
VAT
said,
by 13%.
by 13%. Yeah, by the way, 15%, unless they say, by the way, the president is saying, we will reduce. And of course, sometimes he listens to people. You know, I have seen a lot of things in this country that they are cheating the president.
Yeah.
I saw in politics in Kiamba, other areas, and watu wanajipiga kifua akisema this will happen. But he also sits back and wonders, kwani mnidanganya? So this is one area that I can tell him, amendanganywa 100%. Because if he should ask them, sasa mumeniambia nitangaze 15%. What are you touching? If they will keep on saying, tumeambia Kenya Power reduce. Kenya Power had said, if you don't give us an increase of 20%, we are going to make a loss. Then you tell them that they reduce. That will not happen. And I have seen, and I always say, even in developed countries, you know, what the president should look at are such things. Because, like, the number one infrastructure, I think, in Africa is Namibia. But it happens that in terms of GDP and all that, Kenya is ahead. So you have actually developed infrastructure, but people don't have cars because the economy cannot allow. So now, right now here, what we are saying that key to what he is saying, that you are going to realize a reduction of 15%. He should have brought, I don't know who is the PS for Energy, I think is
We have a new... He remember,
Yeah.
the president, upon receiving this report and saying, let's implement the report,
Yes.
he went to the Ministry of Energy
Yes.
and did an entire shake-up.
Yes.
Removed the PS, removed the CS. Brought in an achiever, a worker, Ambassador Monica Juma.
Yes.
Brought in retired General Gordon Kihalangwa.
Yes.
That's a new CS and PS.
Yes.
And the people who are also overseeing the implementation of this task force report
Yes.
include CS Fred Matiang'i, who chaired the first meeting
Yes.
of the task force team and told them, all right, so the president has told us our marching orders are these.
I wish I was there.
So you see, the president has basically said, everything that you need, you have it.
They don't have one thing. The mandate to touch the VAT. That they don't have. They don't have the mandate to touch the IPPs. You know, I said, and the matches I said, and I will repeat this very many times. If this report was about the PPAs of those independent power producers, I have said, come here, don't even study them. Tell them, go home. You will only get 12.81%. Even if you tell them to go home, remember they cannot go home. They have some contracts that are binding. So just expect like 1 shilling from whatever they are going to do. Go and tell Kenya Power, we need you to reduce the losses. From 24%, you bring it to 0. You know, they can't do that, and they can't take a few months. So when the president is saying even 15% in the next 3 months, me, I'm very worried, because where is he getting that money from if it is not from the VAT?
Am I then hearing you, Ndereva, saying that for us to see a realization of a drop in cost of electricity in this country, the only way is by reducing the tax?
By reducing the tax. And tax, if you are told there is no taxation, there is no VAT in electricity, the maximum you can get is 13%. 13. So remember, he said 15. So, and he did not mention anything to do with it. So even if he says VAT imekuja 0 shillings, you will only get 13%. He has to come somewhere else. Aseme forex imekuwa 0. Hii ingine imekuwa 0. So 33 in this country, I think we are dreaming.
So then the other thing that I'm hearing you say is that the amount we are paying for power is reasonable.
Not all classes. I said for the biggest proportion, like 60% of the citizens, wale wali connect to on the last mile, and they are spending like less than 100 kilowatt hours. Those ones we can say...
Domestic homes in the villages.
Yes, those domestic and villages, those are doing okay, I would say. At that around 17, 16 shillings, 18, I wouldn't have a big problem. But now, those guys who are in industry, who are paying like 22, 24, and then this in the Kenyan who is driving, I would say, is paying 25 shillings. I've just decided to say, huyo mtu ana drive lazima akuwe na instant water heater kwake. Lazima akuwe akisikia baridi, he can take some heater. Yeah.
So the consumption per month is higher.
It's also higher. So going beyond 100 kilowatt hours.
So it's unreasonable for those two categories.
Yeah. So, I mean, this reduction, and I don't know who will tell the president. Even if I was to pass through State House, ndaombe unaona hii report, hii ulipewa hii. Hii, don't read it. If they have not talked about VAT, hii that 3%, hii usiguze. Don't even think about it. Don't even cause a lot of commotion in Kenya trying to reshuffle people. Don't think about. I am here. I will be here any other time, and I will repeat the same.
You are in this sector.
Yes.
Ndereva. You have worked in this organization, in this sector for a while.
Yes.
So obviously you interact with other engineers and others who are in the sector. Are they saying the same thing that you're saying? Or are there those who would actually tell you, no, what the task force recommended makes sense, and what the president is announcing to the public makes sense? Are there those who disagree with you?
It's nobody who's disagreeing. In fact, I'll tell you, I interact with very many of them. In Kenya Power, I think I interact with very many of them. Much as they are engineers, we are also, I do energy auditing.
Yep.
Energy auditing is also looking at their bills, what is making them consume more and all that. And we have to interact with Kenya Power and EPRA people. And when I told EPRA, you guys, have you seen this report? Where is that 3% coming from? They said that the president has said, it is the president who has, and it must happen. I said, it's okay. It must happen, but how? Mm-hmm. He said, never mind, they are experts. We are not experts as far as that is concerned. I said, I am an expert, an independent expert. And I have to tell you that this will not happen. And if it happens, we will not have Kenya Power in this country. Because basically, even if you sell one Kenya Power at 1 shilling per kilowatt hour, 1 shilling, you sell to them instead of 5, you can still get that reduction. I mean, if Kenya Power watoke badala ya kuziwa 8 shillings, wauziwe 1 shilling, it can't happen. And of course, I don't know who misinformed these people. But let me tell you. You've
told us before of political statements that have been made with regards to power and the reduction of the costs.
Yes.
And previously it has happened, just for political expediency. We have seen a reduction, and then we have seen a progressive return to the old billing. Why aren't we seeing that now?
First of all, let me tell you.
Why can't we see a 15% reduction today? And then, during the whole campaign season and all, it will come back up.
I will tell you something, Eric, and something that people were conned. In August of 2018, they were told that, I remember the Director General was Pavel Oimeke. He's now the MP for, I think, Borabu or something. And they said, power has been reduced from this to this. In fact, even standing charge has been removed. Do you know, power was actually increased? Because those people who are paying 8 shillings started paying. It was actually some addition to Kenya Power's income. But then they reduced taxation, they reduced forex and all that. Things that grows with the time. So the government was a bit political. Wakasema, let us reduce this. Then the top there will still remain like it is the same or reduced, but it will grow. And that is what has grown. Now, would you imagine how was it reduced? And we have not found any gazettement of saying power has been increased. If it was reduced in 2018, why is it more than before? If it was a reduction. So those are political statements. We are, as billing experts, of course, we look at the details of what they have said, and we can tell you that this is empty. Even when they said that 3%, we said, hiyo hakuna kitu itapatikana. If it is not going to be VAT, it will not. In fact, you cannot tell people that you can score, out of 700 marks, you can score 800. That is what we are saying. Yeah.
So finally,
yes.
What's your message to the president?
If he is watching this or is going to listen, I will tell him, VAT is not a big component as far as the Kenyan's income is concerned. So even if he scraps VAT from the billing, there is no harm. But he should also remember that that is only going to give 13%. So for the 33%, he should just get another team to investigate the team that told him that and ask the team, can you tell me bit by bit, what is this that we are going to get from Forex? What is it that we are going to get from consumption for us to get a total of 33%? That is basically what he should do. Otherwise, I will tell him that he will continue announcing, but as far as he doesn't call them to task and ask them, where do you want us to reduce? He will never realize that. He's going to retire he's going to leave office with a lot of controversy and being told that you promised this, it never happened. Just like laptops and the dams and all that. That is what will happen.
Isaac Ndereva, thank you very much for joining us. Isaac is a power bills expert and he's with the Electricity Consumer Society of Kenya. We've been talking about the president's pledge, and he called it a promise to reduce power bills by the end of December by 15% and a further 15% by the end of March. Is it happening? We want to hear from you. And thank you very much for tuning in to Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room.
This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.